We're going to, in continuing to recognize our employees, we're going to take a few minutes to appreciate 3 of our team members who are choosing to retire from their roles in the county in the second quarter of this year. Okay. So one of the resounding themes when I was talking about each of these employees was their dedication. So of the many ways one can define dedication, I felt that this definition here rang true. And it's for each of these employees. And that is the quality of being committed to a purpose and the willingness to give a lot of time and energy to it because of its importance. And in talking with each of your department heads, that came through. So each of these individuals served their community in their direct actions or support to the others in the departments, and we thank you very much for that. So I'm going to bring each of them up. We'll read a little something and come on up. We have a plaque for you and we'll take your picture. All right, so first we have Jeff Suter. Jeff is retiring. Oh. Okay, Jeff is retiring after 16 years working as a custodial worker with our buildings and grounds department. So in talking to his team about Jeff, there were stories that we won't share. They had some good times, but he was always willing to go the extra mile and do the right thing. He was willing to pitch in and help the team, whether it meant taking on more duties, changing buildings, and overall understood his role and would do whatever was needed to support the county. So thank you, Jeff, for your service. Okay, so Kaylee's going to take this. The awkward part. All right. Right. All right, next we're going to recognize Bruce Rogie, or BJ. BJ's retiring after 16 years in our solid waste department. He's worked the various titles in the department, including medium equipment operator, heavy equipment operator. I believe he did some mechanic work, and he ended his full-time career as our working supervisor. So as stated by his department head, Kip, BJ is one of the most dedicated guys I know. So he is so dedicated, in fact, that he chose to return and help his team as solid waste on a part-time basis while vacancies are being filled. So thank you, BJ, and enjoy your part-time retirement. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
You wouldn't bet.
And next, we're going to recognize Vicki Meyer from OFA. So Vicki's retiring with 16 years with our Office for the Aging Department. She started as an aging services examiner and is finishing her career as the meal program coordinator. As the coordinator of this program, Vicki worked diligently day and night to ensure that all older adults in need received a nutritious meal, including the evening meals program and the newly implemented Milk Plant Tavern voucher program. She's a leader in multiple fundraisers and volunteer efforts that the department endorses and was always the first to jump in and assist anyone. Her team sends her best wishes with this note: sleep in, finish the coffee, and continue to go for a stroll. We look forward to seeing you on the dance floor. I've done all the fun. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you. All right, overall, just again, recognizing that we want to thank you all. Your commitment, dedication, and passion for your work is truly appreciated. So thank you again for your service to the county, and we wish you all the best in your retirement. And we'll go to committees.
I'd like to call the General Services Committee to order, please. And I will make a motion to approve the May 21st, 2024 committee minutes. Can I have a second? Thank you. Okay, now at this time, we're going to talk about the snow and ice contract for the full board to hear what we did. The full contract for this year is $7,560 per center line mile. This is 10.33% increase over the existing contract amount of the $6,852. Straight 4% annual increase each year. No fuel or salt charges, surcharges. And this is a one-year contract with an auto renewal unless either party opts out by May 1st of each year, and then we will meet again. This does not include sweeping or mowing. This will continue to be a shared service. Are there any comments or questions or concerns? Any discussion?
Yeah, I would say the two meetings that we had, I think a lot of education went into it. I think us and the town highway superintendents really starting to understand the flow of the funds going into their the supervisor's hands. So they got I think, a very good education towards it.
Actually, it goes to their board, not to them.
Would it be possible to get that, what you read in writing, so we could read that again? Thank you.
I'll agree with Tom. Those two meetings were a very good understanding for the group, for all the municipalities, and shows the commitment and the shared service that goes between the county and the various towns. And I think there's a lot of shared service with, some towns do mowing and sweeping as well as part of the mutual agreement, but it's a good benefit for the county and the towns, and we'll continue to move forward.
So Jeff, we will have a real resolution for you guys to adopt next month. Okay, so it'll come back through committee, but we'll get you the details in the meantime. So yeah, for sure. Yep.
At this time, we will do draft resolutions.
The first one is adopting local law number 1-2024 titled A Local Law Amending Local Law number 2-2021 to extend the authorization of 12 and 13-year-old licensed hunters to hunt deer with a firearm or crossbow during hunting season with the supervision of a licensed adult pursuant to Environmental Conservation Law 11-0935.
All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Carried.
Number 2 is finding and determining that an unsafe structure at 1047 State Route 26 in the hamlet of West Leyden shall be demolished and removed, and to set hearing for final order.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Carried.
3 is amending the 2024 compensation plan to increase the district attorney mandated salary by the state from $200,400 to $221,200 effective and retroactive to April 1st, 2024.
Any discussion?
Can this be amended to start in 2025?
No, this is a state mandated law, and it's actually retroactive back to April. So
All in favor, say aye.
Nay.
Andrea, what was your vote? A or nay? Okay.
Joan, do you have a comment or anything now?
No, I would just tell some of the newer board members that we addressed this back in 2018. The board at that time tried by not adopting the resolution, and we really don't have that option because a lawsuit could have been, an Article 78 proceeding could be brought against the county for not following through on this. So it's just something that it's in the law. We're going to have to deal with it.
Thank you.
This isn't my committee, so I do apologize, but Joan, if an Article 78 is brought against us, could they make us pay their legal fees?
I don't know if the state can do that, but it's possible, especially since this is a mandated requirement, and it's also in the amendment to the law, the judiciary law. So, maybe we'd have to pay interest on what was owed. So let's not go down that path.
After hearing the discussion, I will change my vote.
Thank you.
After hearing the discussion, I'll change mine as well.
Anyone else?
Same here. I would ask, is this something NISAC could bring up in the future to have the things like this actually move forward at our budget time for one budget?
They did that the last time. This was something that NISAC did take up back in 2016 and 2017. And, it's tied into the salaries of the federal judges. The Supreme Court judges are now matching what the federal judges do. And under the Judiciary Law 183-A, the full-time district attorney in a county as big as or as small as ours gets paid 95% of what the Supreme Court judge gets, or has to be equivalent to what our county court judge gets. And so that's what the number is.
So Joan, coming down the pike, we're going to be looking at increases for all the judges as well, right?
We don't pay the judges' salaries.
Okay.
The judges would have already automatically gone up on April 1st.
Any other discussion?
Number 4 is providing preliminary comments of concern with respect to OSHA proposed emergency responder comprehensive safety plan document.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays?
Again, I apologize, this isn't my committee, but I do want to let you know, the town of Denmark sent me draft letters that they had sent to all the local representatives. So if anyone needs them for their towns, we do have at least an example from the town of Denmark.
Thank you.
Number 5 is authorizing an agreement between New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the County of Lewis for the acceptance of Adirondack Park Community Smart Growth Grant Program funds in the amount of $125,000 to complete a winter recreation trail development plan in areas within the Adirondack boundary.
Any discussion?
I'm not on your committee, but is this going to be a motorized trail system? And in kind, so you have to put in $58,000 of services in order to get this grant? Okay.
So is this a snowshoeing cross-country scheme? Okay.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any? Carried.
Sorry. Number 6 is awarding bid and authorizing contract with Michael Leindecker of Casterland, New York for the term of August 1st, 2024 through July 31st, 2026, requiring the contractor to pay the county $115,000 for the harvesting of timber at North-South Road in the town of Gregg.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Carried.
Number 7 is authorizing and approving the change order to the agreement with Betty and Kring for rock removal at the new outdoor services building at a cost of $21,960.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Carried.
Number 8 is authorizing and approving the change order to the agreement with Betty and Kring for the demolition and installation over the front door and steps to the downstairs at the new outdoor services building at a cost of $21,534.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Carried.
Number 9 is authorizing and approving the change order to the agreement with Betty and Kring for the security sound control work on the social services side of the new human services building at a cost of $25,099.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Andrea, can I make a note on this, please?
Yes.
So this is one of the change orders that will be deducted from our payment to CNS. So we're paying it, but then it'll be deducted from our bill to them.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any? Carried.
Number 10 is designating the Lewis County Fire and Emergency Management Department as official emergency management office in Lewis County to provide for the coordination, mitigation, preparedness, training, response, and recovery from natural and man-made disasters, and to facilitate effective plans during periods of disaster or emergency in Lewis County, utilizing updated NIMS and ICS guidelines to comply with federal and state regulations for disaster relief funding and reimbursements.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Carried. There are no motions and there is no executive session. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Could I have a second? Thank you. We're adjourned.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried. We do have a few presentations today. We're going to start off with Eric Berkler, the treasurer, to go over the IGT overview.
Good afternoon. I will try and keep this short. I think really just kind of a follow-up from our discussions a month ago on the IGT. You should have this summary, which is just a synopsis of the other document we provided you. I really wanted to just kind of simplify it and look at actual dollars paid out versus budget. So that's what this is trying to do. We've tracked this. This goes back 8 years. We can go 9 years. We can go back further if you'd like some more information, but it takes a little bit of time to dig it out of our older financial system. So that information shows you that comparison. As you recall, last month, we had a resolution to appropriate funds from fund balance to cover our deficit this year. We added in, as you see, we have right now a deficit of 4.7 million. The resolution last month included another 1.5 we've estimated for a nursing home payment, IGT payment that's expected to come later this year. Again, as we've talked about, it's really a difficult item to estimate and budget. I don't know, Jeff, if you have any thoughts you want to share on that, but I mean, Jeff and the hospital staff and the hospital as a consultant that works on this issue, and they probably can do a pretty good job after the fact, seeing, what the state has told us to pay and whether it's a good estimate or not, but to predict it in advance, I think is very difficult. So this year, our picture is certainly not what we were looking for it to be. I think the other thing Ryan and I are starting to think about is where are we going to go with our budget for 2025? And we've been pretty conservative in our budgeting the last few years. We're going to have to see if we can stick to that or if we might have to bump that budget up. Any questions?
Eric, looking at these numbers, I did some quick figuring, and should we be looking at maybe 4 million budget?
That's definitely something I think we need to consider. I think once we get the whole entire budget picture moving forward for 2025, we're going to have to see what we can, how we can handle an increase like that.
You can see, Tom, that after we got bit in 2017 with the large catch-up year, we did bump it up to 3.75, and then we ran big surpluses. So, it's just one of those things where we can't seem to nail it down in the right year. Our thought process going into budget, which we talked a lot about last fall, going into this year's budget was, well, we had a good fund balance and we didn't want to pre-charge the taxpayers for a bill that might not come and then add more to the fund balance. Well, turns out we wouldn't have had to have worried about that too much, but that was kind of the strategy. So
Yeah, I mean, it's completely understandable. I know it's a number that we get hit with every year, up or down, whatever it might be, but like I said, looking at these numbers, I come up with an average of like 3.95 over those years. It
Yeah.
goes along with my, figures don't lie, but liars do figure.
Yeah, I definitely think that's going to be the discussion for the next 2 or 3 months, Tom, is where do we budget and will we be able to absorb an increase of whatever amount we come up with?
Eric, can there be a reserve fund created for this? And I had 3.95, almost exactly what you had, Tom. And looking at the nursing home, it looks like an average of like 1.8 million.
I haven't given a lot of thought to a reserve fund, Tom, but I think we could certainly think about that. The fund balance acts as the reserve, but if we wanted to, either formally or informally try and set something up, that's certainly something we can think about as we continue this discussion.
we've thought about, the way we talk about IGT around budget time is kind of in the, like a reserve, right? So recognize that we had 2 years where we saved, nearly $5 million that we had budgeted that we didn't use. So, we recognize that goes into fund balance, but it might have to come back out. The problem is we more than soaked up any surpluses from the last couple of years over this year. So, I think the reserve account's a good idea, but recognize that even if you had operated this like a reserve, we would have not had enough, right?
We would have used it all.
Right.
Yep.
Other than the 1.5 for the hospital, are we current with everything? Because I know there were some years we were behind and they caught up to us all at once.
Well, we are current, when we have future payments or when the hospital gets a future revenue source, the state could still adjust that. And I think maybe, Vinny, what you're referring to is they will reconcile the amounts they've already paid. So that, and again, that's something that I'm not expert enough to know how that reconciliation is going to work out. So we are current on what we paid, but whether there will be some reconciliation of a previously paid amount is still to be determined. I don't know if that.
Right, that's what I meant. I knew there was something out there yet.
Yeah, there definitely is a couple of years still out there that need to be reconciled.
The audited cost report for 2022 would hit us in 2025. So we're always going to be a few years behind the way the DOH does that calculation. I did have a chance to spend some time with our hospital auditors at the Foundation Golf Tournament. And I was picking their brain all day about this. And the one thing that stuck with me, because I asked them, I said, why is this so hard to predict? Everybody knows the inputs. This is a government formula. It should be published and plastered everywhere. He said, Ryan, everyone does know the inputs except for one big number. And that is, what is the federal appropriation, which changes. So that's what changes. And our cost report and reimbursement is in relation to other critical access and municipally owned hospitals. So it's the inputs might be the same for us, but the amount coming in from the federal government changes, and our amount in comparison to the other hospitals changes as well. So that's what they're auditing, a few years behind. So that's what makes it difficult.
Well, I guess the good news is even if we do expend 7 million this year out of our budget, if Albany's matching it, we're ending up with 14 million
Yes, correct.
on the hospital side, but
Yes. And again, I think that was part of your discussion last month. I mean, I don't know that there's been a time in history that the county has not paid our share because it benefits the hospital. So that just makes sense.
Just for clarification, is it state money that matches this? It's federal, right?
Correct.
It comes to the
flows
state, they
through the
carve
state.
off their admin fee and pass the rest on.
any other questions? Thank you, Eric.
Thanks.
All right, next we have the Youth Bureau Services. We have Jenny Jones, the Social Services Commissioner here. Jenny?
The bulk of the presentation, but she's put together some folders for you related to Youth Bureau and other youth services that are provided. Vinny actually attends the Youth Bureau meetings, so he's a little bit more familiar with Caitlin than some of you. But I think it's all queued up, and I don't know if there's a clicker to move forward or.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, so each of those folders has a breakdown of the budget from 2022 to 2024. I didn't want to put that all in the presentation and throw too much data at you all, so you can look at it through there. It also has the budget just for the Youth Bureau, the summer rec final that I got. It has the bylaws for the Youth Bureau as well as a brochure, and then I threw in a little flyer for our Lewis County Night Out as well, so you guys would be aware of that opportunity. Okay, so I'm going to make this short, but the first slide is kind of about us. The Youth Bureau, we are an advisory board, not a policy-making board, established in 1997. Obviously, we want a diverse group from different areas in the community. We want people that work in the government, but also from different sectors, those that are just community members, and then obviously the students. I look at it, it's like I want it to be a voice for the young people. I want them to take a lead, the adults to kind of like stand back, guide, help out. I put the role over there in the green box, and you can find that in our bylaws as well. This, you can go over it in the folder as well. It kind of clearly defines all the goals and objectives. I think the next slide is going to break it down a little better and more simply for me, but if you just want to take a minute, obviously it's looking at youth needs and interests specifically, since we are the Youth Bureau. I like to have input, and I'd like to hear the opinions and the voices of everyone that's a member. It's really about finding if there's any gaps anywhere, if there's any implementations we need to make, if we find any duplications, if we can promote people to form collaborations and things like that, and then where the funding should be going. So like I said, this kind of breaks it down a little better of what I expect of the members, understand current youth needs and services, be aware of what's in the area, share input. Obviously, I don't know everything that's going on. Everyone gets little pieces of information, may hear different things. So I always encourage everyone to be open. Then there's the funding that we all go through. And I also want everyone to share, not just be dependent on me, the press releases and all that, but everyone to share the information about what happens to it, the funding and the decisions. So everyone's aware. This is just a quick slide that shows all of the current members right now. Like I said, I'm up there, I'm ex officio, and so is Vinnie Nortz, but everyone else has a vote. The four on the bottom are our current students, but next Monday is our last meeting, so that will be their last one. We are looking for new ones. I have one application so far, but the bylaws lowered it down to 2 students because there apparently was a hard time getting kids that had a strong interest in this type of extracurricular work. You know, they're going to be focusing on funding and things like that, and then timing with their schedules and stuff. So we're looking for one other student since I only have one application. So you guys want to spread word on that as well. It's on our website. But in the future, I do want to make it so that there's one student from each school district because I feel like they should all be represented. This again is in your folder, so you can take a closer look at it, but I just wanted to throw it up here. It's the county budget for the Youth Bureau itself. And then I wanted to get into the state and county funding, and this is just going to be from 2024. The state funding we get through OCFS. Those are going to have a lot more regulations. The application is going to be a lot longer. If you ever want to see an example, you can ask me and I can send you one. They need to put in a lot more details, and then there needs to be a lot more monitoring on my part and also the Youth Bureau in general. Like I want them to get out and go to sites and visit them as well. So this is where we get the funding through from the state. I put on the bottom there the different ones. So youth development program funds, youth sports and education opportunity, youth sports education opportunity funding infrastructure. That was like a one-time rare opportunity. Maybe it will pop up again. I'm not sure, but then youth team sports allocation. And this is just a quick breakdown. I wanted you guys to see, this is what the state OCFS gives me to look at. And so when people are sending in applications, these are the requirements. Youth development has to be under 21 years of age, whereas youth sports and education is ages 6 through 17. You can see that youth development is more open. Obviously, it's not restricted to just sports or physical activities, but as long as it's positive development to youth in some way. Whereas the sports and education, they break it down a little further. And you can see on there, they're really interested in seeing the outcomes measured. They want to know at the end of the program, how many youth participated, completing the program, and then, you know, what they got from it, if they're better off. And then this is just the breakdown for youth team sports funding. Again, you can see a different age. So they're all kind of have their little specifics. This is 18 under. And since it's team sports, it has to be organized physical activity in which groups of 2 or more are in a competition. And you can see these can help cover like the coaches, the salaries for like referees that are going to be involved as well. And this is where we get into, this is the breakdown just from 2024, what happened with the allocations from the funding. So I did the agencies that applied, everyone is up there, even people that didn't receive funding, so nothing's missing. What they requested, the next line shows what they were awarded and then the use that was for. So Lewis County Suicide Coalition, they requested $10,482.50. We met as a group and awarded them $5,000 of that to be used for Gizmo's Possum Guide. So we go around to all the schools, read that to third graders. I got to do a site visit on it already, and it was really cute, and they benefited from it and they liked it. So this is just a breakdown. I'm going to go through these kind of quick. Like I said, I don't want to just show you guys data and read through it all. This was the youth sports and education. As you can see, we only got 2 applications. And the total is at the top too. So the total is how much we get from the state to break down and allocate to the applications that we get.
Caitlin, can you remind the legislators where these requests for proposals are posted?
Yes. And I was going to get to it too.
Okay, sorry.
So they're always posted on our website, and I'm going to email them out. If anyone doesn't get one, please let me know, and I can make a specific distribution list and add people to it. I've also worked with getting it out to Lincoln Lewis, NNY 360. I feel like I'm missing one off the top of my head, but I try and get it out so as many places as people can see. This was the youth sports and education infrastructure. Like I said, this was a one-time special funding. We've never seen it before, and it worked out perfectly to help with the new chiller. And that was the only application we received for that. Youth team sports, again, was only 2. I got to do a site visit on Loudville Youth Lacrosse last week, and that was really interesting. They had 2 teams, and it looked like a good amount of kids were involved and coached well in a positive environment. And then this one is the county funding. So I got to be a part of this. As you all know, I started in March, so some of the state funding, I wasn't really there for the meetings and the allocations, but this one I got to be a part of. These are all the applications we received, so everyone got a little bit of funding. No one received nothing. It was lower than some of our state. We only had 12,500, but as you can see, some of these are requesting smaller amounts. And I should say for both state and county funding, it can be for new or existing programs. And again, these don't actually require site visits. They don't require me to send in monitoring information, obviously, with the state or anything, but I still do it and keep track of all these. I recommend my members do the same. So the fair funds distribution, obviously we have to have a quorum when we meet. We have to have a majority voting. Applications, I send them out to my members before we meet. I expect them to overview them all and come in with a mindset of where they think it should go. If they have any questions, I like them to send them out beforehand so I can get those answered. We are going to start implementing presentations before we vote, so that way if there are questions, they can be in front of us in the room. We can ask them directly. Basically, it's up to the board to best decide where the funds will be allocated. I'm relying on them to, voice their opinions, what they think. We look at, if this is a new program, is this amount of funding that we're giving going to be enough to get them started? If we only give them part of it, is it not going to work? Existing ones, we can look back at their past site visits and how they've been running and things like that. Press releases, those are going to be on the funds being open and also after distribution, because I want everyone to be aware of where all the funds are going. And the same thing with when they're available, like Ryan asked, and the same thing when they're put out. I'm going to do them on our website, Lincoln Lewis. I think that's on the next slide. NNY 360. These are just quick examples. Some of these were from this year, some from 2020, some from 2023, sorry. And then finally, I just wanted to end it with the last little slide about summer recreation, since I got the final budget sent over to me yesterday and the Youth Bureau was a part of some of those funding allocations. The whole form is in each of your folders, but this just shows the revenue, the funding streams, because I wanted to show that there are different funding options available. That's something I'm taking the time to look into. I want to know the other ones. I didn't know about the AES solar grant until we were talking about this and realized that was out there. The New York State Connect Kids grant helps with state park access. So I'm making a priority to find these different funding options and know them and about them. And there's almost 200 kids already signed up. I don't know if the Krogan sign up was yesterday or today, but I'm expecting that number is going to go up more. And that was it. Any questions? Did they? It was almost. It was like close to 200. So I was assuming after Krogan it would be 200 or a little over. Tonight at Wishies. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Any other questions? Okay, I think that will lead into our next discussion, which is the youth recreation funding.
So Jeff, you want to, I'll hand out some stuff and you can kind of take it from there.
Sorry, thank you. After we passed the resolution last month, it bothered me to the point that I certainly don't mind helping kids. I think that's important. They're our future for the county. What kind of bothered me was the fact that it kind of was centrally located around Lowville potentially. And in my district, I get a lot of complaints that the money flows to Lowville, but not to the outlying districts. So I've basically done a calculation and it should be in front of you. We stated there'd be a $100 per child, and there was an estimated 128 students from the town of Lowville per the report that we were given. So that was ended up being 12,800, and I divided that by the population of the town of Lowville, and I came up with $2.61. So then kind of if you go down to the bottom of the page, I took the population of each of the towns. I multiplied it by the rate, came up with the total, and then I subtracted what was paid to for the summer rec program to each of the towns participants, and subtracted that out. Came up with the balance due to the towns. And my basically my proposal would be that I would like to give this money to these towns. We could break out the villages if we feel we wanted to. And give it to the towns and tie it that they use it for something youth related. I know I spoke when I went to the town of Leiden town board meeting. Their town, they give money to the town, the schools, 2 school districts for summer to support the summer rec programs. They didn't come to the county and ask for it, but they do that already. I know the town of Lewis and the town of Osceola. Town of Lewis for sure has a great park that they really work hard to keep up, and they've got a lot of things there for kids, because a lot of our areas that we do represent are remote. They can't go, kids can't make it to summer rec programs, but we still should support the kids in the remote areas also. So that's basically what I would like to do by giving this money to the various towns, have it earmarked for youth activities, something to support the youth, whether it be playgrounds or whatever that would help the youth. Any questions?
Would this be yearly? Yeah.
I would like this to be this year as a result of what we done for in the past resolution, the 109. In the future, I would like this to be a budget item with a little more thought going into it and not be a knee-jerk reaction, and put some thought into it, how we would distribute that to the county youth. Because it's a little bit difficult, because we're spread, Lewis County population is very much spread out and remote. So I would like that to be more thought going into it in the future. This would be a one-time thing.
Ryan, do we have anything else where we earmark like $20,000 or $18,000 to only benefit one town and the rest of the county? Maybe Larry,
I'm sure there are one-offs. I'm having a hard time thinking off the top of my head, but in general, we do work hard to try to make sure there's balance, right? But I'm sure there are singular items, yeah. I mean, like, we own property in the town of Gregg that we, obviously the Singing Waters has had a big investment. So, there are one-offs, right, where we decide to build trails and where, there's areas where the county invests. So, but I'm having a hard time with a particular line item.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
Jeff, the population, is that based on kids or the total population?
That would be based on total population.
So for this year, part of the problem is, I recognize it's an imbalance and it's always been this type of funding has always been an issue on this board, trying to balance it out amongst, the whole county as a whole, effectively. Going forward, I think maybe the answer, my thought is that we should identify a number of what we want to fund, the level we want to fund it at, and give it to the Youth Bureau for them to allocate it out. Gets us out of the feeling of, the imbalance, and we still participate with funding youth activities. Secondly, this has been known for a long time, as I said. So we came up with what we call a community fund, which is administered by Naturally Lewis. And the goal of that fund was to make money available for underlying municipalities, towns and villages, to where if they had a municipal project, particularly, for public spaces or for this type of youth program, the town or municipality can apply to the community fund and get funded through that route. It's just very difficult for this board to, to deny a request unless we deny them all. So if we shift the funding and we fund, the community fund to some level and the Youth Bureau to some level and let someone else make the decision of where the money goes. The reason why we're in this position with the town of Lowville is because no one else applied for the money. And you'll see in some of the Youth Bureau statistics there that they gave extra money to the town of Lowville because nobody applied to it. You recall a couple of years ago, we funded the towns with excess sales tax, and that was based on a three-part scheme, if I remember correctly, where part of it was residential, part of it was the town budget. Anyways, we doled out $500,000 to each one of to all the towns on a county level. I don't know what the breakdown was by town, but so we just sent all the towns a check. They got a check. There were no ties to it. It was supposed to fund the highway budgets for high fuel charges, and it was just money fell out of the clouds, and who knows what they did with it. Maybe they bought a new pickup truck. Maybe they didn't. To Jeff's point, if we earmark it that it has to be spent on youth programs, that would alleviate that issue of just extra money that they didn't need or wasn't in their budget, wasn't a line item request for the budget. But having said that, I don't know if a lot of the towns are in a position to start a rec program. So maybe we're better off giving it to the Youth Bureau and the Community Fund and let them actively apply for a program that they would like to initiate in their individual town.
Do we know, out of the 17 towns, which ones have an organized youth rec program?
Yeah, Jenny did a full breakdown earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, but did a complete survey that really was a comprehensive look at all the youth programs going on in the county. So we do have a pretty good look at that, I think.
I think that's important, but I think we need to do it equally throughout the county. I gotta tell you, my district doesn't see those benefits. I mean, when I looked at the slides, most of it was Loudon. And that's what I hear from my constituents. So giving it to the youth bureau, it's nice, but it doesn't help. It helps Loudville in centrally located towns, but not the outlying districts, I feel. That's why, yeah, $600, but Osceola, I gotta tell you, $600 is a lot more than, right, in their budget compared to Loudville's budget is that much different too. So $600 means a lot to a very small town that doesn't get much. I don't mind helping the youth bureau, but again, I see that it's keep being centrally located. That this year, but at least if we give it to the towns, earmark it, let the towns decide this year. Maybe in the future, maybe next year we can come up with a strategy that, we can work together and do that. But I think at this point, I would like to see this move forward just to help the rest of the youth in the county, the outlying areas. I was using the data that was provided to us when this resolution was passed. I was just using the data that I have.
So should we consider maybe tabling this till the next meeting so we can get the actual physical addresses versus mailing addresses to get a more accurate? Right, and that way we would really have a more accurate, so then we could re-examine this once we have an idea of really what towns the population ends up. I think it'll still reflect this, but we'd have actual figures.
I would like to do it. I'd like to do it fairly soon, so we're still in the summer, so they can do something. I mean, I'm very willing to get the accurate numbers if we want to do that.
Yeah, I think, Tim's point, I think you're touched on the direction to go by opening it, say, pulling it from Howell, moving it over to Krogan, all of a sudden the participation starts growing. If you do something, say, turning or something like that, making it, trying to reach out to the remote areas, I think that seems to be a big impact.
You know, and Jeff, I'm thinking too that you say the youth bureau versus each township. The youth bureau would, even though it's located in Lowell, would represent the whole, what we're doing here. I think that they would be more, that could be a central, more equitable place for the towns to talk to. You know, and they should have that dialogue with us and with the youth bureau once we get this set up and running.
I don't to promote the youth bureau. I think this is something that the town should know about also.
Right, there is an educational aspect to it that we have to have. And I think now that we have a director and a good committee, even if the towns would like to send representatives to the youth bureau to sit in that, you know, to see that, maybe, you know, we can set up some kind of dialogue with that, with the town's PR campaign, something to draw them in, because as far as I'm concerned, the kids of Lewis County, that's our resource. That's
So
what makes us-
Vinny, Barry, Tom, and Josh, do you want to table this to get more information? Or did you want?
On that, agree with Jenny. There was a waiting list last year of approximately 80 individuals, so that's 40% of the roughly 200 that did attend. So these numbers will change and drive, and I would recommend tabling it to see where the accurate data comes from. Also, too, this is representing the towns. There's villages in here that operate and maintain municipal parks that towns do not. Yeah. Yeah. So with that, there's fixed costs that goes with a smaller municipality that upholds the broad spectrum that a town may not. Town identity is there, but they don't have any funding associated with that. So it skews the numbers, but I would recommend tabling it, waiting for the data. And I do see the benefit by maybe having these funds for the Youth Bureau and have that information shared with the towns. And if they have a youth program that benefits that municipality, they can then apply for it. Because some of the towns on here don't participate, they may not have a youth program. And as Larry had made mention, there was that fuel surcharge submitted to various towns. Was it used for that? I know it's going to be earmarked, but make sure it's appropriated and used wisely.
Are you thinking to table? What's your thought? Table? Barry? Table and Benny? Okay, so then we will table that to get the better information. Once we have more of it, then we can readdress. Ryan?
So just to recap, what I'm hearing that the staff can do is collect enrollment data from the Double Play Summer Youth Program. Once that enrollment is complete, which should be, we're thinking in the next couple of weeks, we will also incorporate village data into that calculation so that we're breaking it down more specifically. Third, it sounds like maybe we need some type of plan or a strategy to engage with the towns and villages on what is available already. But I do agree with Josh. I would think a lot of our towns don't have any formal youth component. So I understand that. And then fourth, we need to budget something more concrete in 2025. So we're not kind of handling this in an ad hoc as it comes along basis. So those are the four things that I think the county staff will be prepared to bring back to the table. Maybe it's, our July committee meeting is actually going to be a week later because we bumped it back to the fair. So July 23rd is, 6 weeks. So that should be, maybe we can come back in July with some better information.
Sounds good. Okay, I believe we were done with all the presentations and discussions items. So now we'll move on to the draft resolutions.
Okay, the first one is authorizing MOU between Lewis County Community Services Department and Jefferson County Community Services Department for a bi-county mobile crisis program as outlined by the New York State OMH and its state aid funding provided to both counties for behavioral health mobile crisis services.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Pass.
The second one is authorizing an agreement with the Alcohol and Substance Abuse Council of Jefferson County, DBA Pivot, to develop and service an OASIS substance misuse prevention program for Lewis County residents, including the administration of the Bach-Harrison Prevention Needs Assessment Survey to 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders in the 5 school districts in Lewis County every other year at a cost of $300,000 per year.
Any discussion?
I have a question about the funding on that in section 3. It says that the cost is $300,000 per year with a $275 provided by the state and $25 from the opioid settlement. So that money will not come out of the general fund. It's all. No. All that's already going to be paid already. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that passed.
Number 3 is awarding the bid and authorizing an agreement with United Radio to provide 360-degree surveillance coverage and remote access via the microwave radio system at 10 identified county 911 tower sites at a cost of $191,887.85 to be completed by December 31st, 2024.
So I'll start the discussion on this. This is to put cameras in the towers. They're not there right now. Lewis County has not had any issues, but some of our surrounding counties have had issues. So we're just trying to get ahead on that. This is also a grant, so it's already been covered. And the other advantage of this would be to put in remote access. So if we have a contractor or someone that needs to go out to the site, we don't have to give them a key. We can just give them a code. Any other discussion?
Is there a maintenance contract with this then too?
Is Cheryl here?
Okay.
So it's the same provider, which will be helpful. Any other discussion?
I think I mentioned this before. Is there any way to have weather data gathered with this same company?
spoke to the sheriff and he said that is something that at least could be available at some point with this, that it does at least give you the camera and the towers that can start tracking some more of this than what we have access to right now. Cheryl, I don't know if we have anything specific for weather.
So there'd be like the old fashioned weather stick. So you're looking at a thing to, yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at more for the county highway for temperature and wind and so the infrastructure is going to be in place to add more. Yeah.
And then when I spoke to the sheriff this morning, he did say that it could be like eco-terrorism, but not necessarily anything like that at this point. But it gives the infrastructure for it. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. And we have no motions or executive session. So unless there's anything else, I will make the motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Vinny? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
I make a motion to approve the May 21st, 2024 committee minutes, unless there are any amendments. Can I get a second for that? Herb? All in favor, aye? Opposed? Carried. We have a couple presentations today. The first one is going to be from representatives from EFPR, our auditors. And turn it over.
Quick introduction. This is Tom Smith from EFPR. I wanted to introduce because Tom can give you a specific number, but he's the partner. He's been on the Lewis County job for a few years. So 12. That's and the manager on the job, Jeff, has probably been on the job for 8 or so. That's really impressive. You don't get that kind of consistency with an audit firm. That makes me comment too. There's always a lot of discussion that you need to consider changing your audit firm every 5 years. That's kind of thought to be, something to be considered. In the industry, they change the partners every 5 years. That kind of covers that thought. But to have that kind of consistency with an audit team is amazing. So I really appreciate it. And that's my introduction for Tom.
Thank you, Eric. Hello, everyone. So what we did is we put together a one-page summary of the audit, but we provided the audited financial statement, so I can always go into more or less detail than what's provided. I didn't want to subject you to 100 pages of this information. So to start off, we did issue the financial statements already. The financial statements and the audit reports were reviewed with management, both with Eric and Ryan, their team. We did issue what's called clean unmodified opinions, meaning that the financial statements are fairly stated. The numbers and the disclosures in these reports were all supported. As part of government auditing standards, we do have to issue a report on your internal control. Essentially, we look at the processes down in the business office, make sure that the policies established by the board are being followed, and we did not have any internal control deficiencies that you need to be aware of. We also do what's called the single audit. That is your compliance audit of your federal awards. If you have over $750,000 in federal awards, you are subject to that audit. At county level, you're always much higher than that number. We did audit a few different programs, including Medicaid, as well as ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, which is the new federal money. We did come across one item of noncompliance that we did have to report in the financial statements. Essentially, when money is provided to subrecipients, there is a list of items that the federal government said have to be in that award letter. It was missing a couple of those items in the federal regulations. We see this pretty much everywhere. We have clients that have $100 million budgets, even much larger, that we have had to give that fine to. So it is very common to see that, but we will work with management to make sure that any future award letters are rectified and don't have that issue going forward. On a financial standpoint, your governmental fund balance had a decrease of $11.5 million to a total of $32.2 million. And at the general fund level, where you really establish the budget, really manage the county, you did see a decrease in fund balance of $3.4 million to a total of $21.3. That means that the county is still in a healthy financial position with $21.3 million fund balance at year end. And really that decrease was really correlated to transfers to the capital project fund. And the chart we put together at the bottom is really a breakdown of your fund balance at year end compared to the prior year. You'll see in the bottom right corner where you can see that decrease of $3.5 million. And a lot of that is in your unassigned fund balance. And you can see in the middle there that the reserve fund balance, we have a little bit more discretion, has a slight decrease of $7,000. So really at this point, I'd like to turn over to the board. If you have any questions on either the financial statements, the audit process, anything that I can answer.
Anyone have any questions or comments or something we don't understand?
I would note that the fund balance, as it states here, is as of the end of the year last year, before we made our IGT payments. So it's a little different now.
It will continue lower as we continue to make our IGT payments.
What do you think? If that's it, we thank you very much for your time and effort and appreciate everything you put into it.
Of course, thank you. And I just do want to point out that Eric and his team are great to work with. They get us everything on time. And I actually just heard about Ryan's news, so gonna be sad to see him go. And it's been great working with him as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just a couple notes I would add on the fund balance. I think I shared a summary of maybe at the last committee meeting. Looking at that decrease in our general fund balance that Tom just pointed out, and he also mentioned most of the change, we specifically move funds into our reserve funds. And another quick summary, we actually, from an operational standpoint in 2023, we actually increased fund balance 3.8 million, but then we transferred out almost 8 million, 7.75. So that caused a decrease. The big things that we transferred funds out for, one was the PSB parking lot. We transferred out 1.7 million. Now we only spent, I think, about 900,000. So quite a bit of what was transferred out is still sitting in our capital reserve. We also transferred out 2 million for the rail project, waiting to be used, and then 3 million for our building projects, which we estimated probably 2 years ago we were going to need those funds to complete the building project. So all things that we did intentionally. It wasn't a unknown decrease in the fund balance.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, that takes care of that part of it. And now we've got a senior citizen tax exemption explanation from Candy Aiken, our Director of Real Property.
Not even close. Okay, so some of you may remember that in 2019, I approached the board about increasing the senior citizens exemption income limits. Back then, and you did, we increased it by $2,000. So now I'm coming to you again, asking for increases. This is what was from the 2023 final roll, which produced the 1/1/2024 taxes. We had 219 parcels, property owners receiving the exemption. The total value of the exemptions is 7.5 million. And that equals out to about 55,500 in cost to the rest of the taxpayers. That amount is what was spread around to the rest of the taxpayers. On the bottom of the columns there, you can see the income limits that we currently have, and the number in white inside of those columns are the number of property owners that are receiving the exemptions for those amounts. So we have several property owners that are seniors that are living in poverty right now and trying to hang on to their homes. I gathered some 2022 census data, and we have 5,261 residents in Lewis County that are 65 and older. The percent of those residents that have incomes below 30,000 is 31%. And the percent below the current poverty level, which is $20,400 roughly, is 8.4%. Of the 5,261 property or residents that are over 65, we have about 1,259 of them that actually are owner-occupied homes. So on the right, the chart that I did there is the percentage of I'm sorry, that's the 1,259 owner-occupied properties that have and what their income ranges are according to the census data. So the area that we're looking at right now is the $20,000 to the $25,000 range and above, because we already grant the exemption to the property owners that are below that. So the 312 number jumps out because that is a big range for property owners and seniors with their income. It's just above the poverty level, but still, I'm curious to know how they can actually live on that type of an income. So that brings us to why should we increase the limits? Well, Social Security over the last 4 years has increased their COLA increases totaled almost 21%. The COLA increases have put several of the property owners that were getting the exemption out of the income limit. So they no longer qualify, or the ones that do still qualify might qualify for a lesser exemption. So our property taxes last year decreased, but I know the county can't continue on that trend, as most towns, villages, and schools can't either. And most cases, property taxes increase each year. Unfortunately, the actual cost of living increases that property owners are receiving are greater than the COLA increases that they're getting, and causing seniors to struggle to pay their taxes. The real property tax law 467, the state under this law allows all taxing jurisdictions to set maximum income levels for a 50% exemption, and those levels can be set anywhere between $3,000 and $50,000. As I said last, it was updated in 2019, and we set the 50% income level up to 17%, and it had been at 15,000, and we increased it to 17,000. In 2019, we had 232 seniors benefiting from the exemption. We are down to 219 as of this year. We do have several municipalities in Lewis County that have already increased their maximum income levels to help the seniors in their towns, but town taxes generally run less than the county taxes or the school districts. Unfortunately, school districts still keep their levels quite low because of the STAR exemption that they feel covers a lot of the shortfalls for seniors. So the suggested increase is in the 50% maximum income is from 17,000 up to 21,000. And this is just an estimated impact. There's no guarantees because it's hard to know what home values are for the seniors living in them. But a rough estimate is it would increase the number of property owners eligible for the exemption to 365. And the value of the exemptions, almost 9.9 million, which would cost the amount that would be spread across the rest of the taxpayers is roughly $62,800. And you can see on the chart on the right that it would increase the number of recipients of the 50% exemption up to 172, and so on and so forth. The state sets, the municipalities has the right to set the maximum income for 50,000, but then the state has a formula for the rest of the income calculations after the first maximum income. So that calculation there, it would qualify somebody with an income up to $26,700 to get the minimum exemption, which is 20%. And they are tiered based on income.
So Candy, the cost of the exemptions that we allow now is around 55,000.
Correct.
So if we were to include this 50%, it would only increase the cost that we have to redistribute about $7,000.
Correct. Right. And that, like I said, Larry, these are just estimates because it's hard to know, it's hard to put an exact figure on it because we don't know the value of the property that the people are living in. We don't know their exact income. All I'm going on is income ranges that the census puts out.
So do you have any information on what it would cost for us to pick up, say, the 21 to 21,999, or maybe even the second bar graph over those two? Any idea what it would?
So I did do another estimated impact. I didn't include it in my slides, but I did estimate if we were to increase the maximum income to 23,000 instead of the 21,000. And that would bring up the 20% exemption to $28,700 that anybody with that income or below could potentially qualify for the exemption. That my estimates would show that it would increase the number of parcels to 523 parcels with a value of the exemption, again, very estimated at 10.6 million. And the cost of the exemption that would be spread to the rest of the taxpayers would be roughly 67,600.
So another 5,000 on top of the 7.
Yes,
5,000 on top of this.
right, for another
we'd be-
$2,000 in income.
Roughly 12,000 over where we are.
Yep.
Have to be
Yep.
redistributed to other taxes.
Correct. And I did one more calculation, and this one is very, very rough because the income guidelines are beyond what we currently grant. So it was very difficult to come up with there's no exact science to it. But I estimate if we were to increase the maximum to 25,000, and that would bring the maximum for the 20% exemption to $30,600 for the 20%. I estimate that we would be over 600 parcels eligible, and the value somewhere between 12 and 15 million, with a cost to everybody between 76,400 and 95,550. But again, very, very rough estimates on that. I just had no data to compare it to. This isn't a decision that has to be made like right away. As long, if the board wants time to discuss it, we wouldn't have to file a local law on this change until December 31st of this year. Any change that's made this year will not affect the taxes that come out in January. It won't be until the January 1, 2026 taxes. So it won't impact this budget year.
Questions for Candy on this?
I have one, Candy. The parcels that are exempt, are these just their resident, or is it?
Yes. No, it has to be their primary residence. Yep.
Joan?
Candy, you said that some of the other local municipalities already increased. Do you know what they increased to?
I do. Yep. The ones that are already granting larger exemptions in the county is the town of Denmark. They increased theirs to 18,500 is the maximum for the 20% exemption, or excuse me, 50% exemption. And the town of Diana is 17,500. We're currently at 17,000. The town of Gregg is 20,300 for the 50% exemption. The town of Lewis is $21,800. The town of Leiden is 20,500. And the town of Osceola is 23,300. And the town of Turin is 17,500. Thank you.
I guess at this time, I would like to see the different ones you just mentioned on paper.
Okay.
I don't know about anybody else, just so we could look at it and
Sure.
go from there.
Okay. I will.
If
send
nobody
them
has
on.
anything else, thank you very much, Candy.
So Tom, we will bring this back then. If it's a local law, we've got to give it at least 3 months, and we want to do it before December. So if you're thinking that there will be a change, we need to bring it back by September at the latest.
Okay. I'd like to see it. I think everybody knows what the cost of everything is nowadays, and I guess it's the opposite end of taking care of the youth. The seniors need taken care of too. So. That takes care of presentations. We'll move on to the draft resolutions.
Okay, number 1 is accepting New York Swim's lifeguard program reimbursement-based award funds in the amount of $20,000 and authorizes Lewis County Planning Director to prepare and submit the application and oversee administering the reimbursable grant funds to local eligible entities.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried.
Number 2 is authorizing Planning and Community Development Department to submit the online application to the New York State Office of Community Renewal for up to $500,000 in 2024 New York Main Street funding for a downtown stabilization project located at 6832 McAlpine Street in the Village of Lyons Falls.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried.
Number 3 is authorizing Lewis County Planning and Community Development Department to submit the online consolidated funding application through the Smart Growth Community Planning and Zoning Grant Funds Program for up to $500,000 in funding to update the 2009 Lewis County Comprehensive Plan.
Questions or comments?
Tom, I would just note if we ever go offline, so a lot of pressure on IT here because Cassie's department is submitting so many online grants that we better not go offline.
All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried.
And the last one is number 4. This is rescinding resolution number 119-2024 and resubmitting corrected standard workday and reporting resolution for District Attorney Jeffrey Tompkins, Legislator Barry Leindecker, Legislator Jessica Mosier, Legislator Herb Frost, and Legislator Thomas Calamus. And I would like to point out that on the draft resolution that you have received, I do need to make, unfortunately, a correction or two. And that would be changing Jeff Tompkins' days per month to 26.89 instead of 26.88. And then also changing Herb Frost's days per month from 2.08 to 2.25. And all of those have been confirmed by the state of New York. That's correct.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, point of order, do we have to vote twice? First to rescind and then second to accept the new one?
Right. All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried. I don't have any motions. Unless anybody has anything else, I'd like to make a motion that we go to executive session. Second from Vince.
And that would be for a personnel matter.
All in favor, aye. Opposed? We are moving into executive session.